Evening, Jar.
Okay, get back to this. And Jar, I see your lips moving, but I didn't hear anything. And you are not muted, so yeah, still no sound.
So, Carl, you have a pipe organ at home?
I have an electronic instrument at home.
Uh,
Uh, it's a digital instrument that uses sound samples from a real organ.
yeah.
But I
My
have
boss
actually,
at Davis,
yeah,
my boss at Davis had an 8-rank pipe organ,
yeah.
and he put it in a house where he had to dig a well in the floor to make room for the vertical pipes.
That's often the case. Uh, I have a guy, he's now passed away, but here in Kent with a 19 rank Wurlitzer.
Oh boy.
He built his house around it. Uh, the console is upstairs, and sort of in front of it, there's a big opening down to the basement where all of the pipes are. Uh, I had the fun of doing uh, a nice project on it, and that was fun.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like there's some chat from Jar to
Yeah,
someone. It sounds like he's having troubles getting in.
okay. Um,
I'll contribute via chat for now.
so,
Can we
okay.
proceed now?
So Char, we're noting that we need to update the meeting link on the website.
There
Uh,
he is.
uh, and Keith indicated you had sent that, and I've been trying to get into GoDaddy through the LastPass, and it's not completely there. Uh, so perhaps you can send to us what we need to get in there. Okay, I can update the link right now.
And I'm having some, since in this role, I seem to be the one that's being contacted by all the people moving into the neighborhood. And there's some frustration, it sounds like, of being able to figure out how to get some things done. And I can handle the part about getting them, make sure the dues are paid up and that they get their key fob, or that Marcy updates their key fob, but I can communicate with her as to who's all paid up. But there's a lot of other information that they don't have. And I don't know, we don't have a person to do that right now.
Well,
Yeah.
for that, yeah, I'll say after you've transmitted the information about the finance and key fobs, refer them to me on my email, kishlinec@iCloud, and I will work with them. I will, in
Okay.
addition, I'm trying to remember to look at the info at gold, or the Gmail account,
Yeah.
email account, and yeah, I'm not as good at that as I should be.
Yeah,
So
I'm still kind of finding my way around all the stuff that's out there.
yeah, well,
I've been trying to go through the Gold Beach account and picking up the financial data that's, if there's invoices coming in or stuff that sounds like, something from a title company that says somebody's moving in or whatever. I've been trying to grab those.
right.
So,
I, I think
ahead.
in a lot of ways, it is going to be a bit of a grab bag of, they will be contacting us in various ways. And as I say, refer them to me. I need to put together.
I think, I'm sorry, Carl, but
Yeah.
let me interrupt here. The best way to handle incoming new owners is to, first of all, copy Jim Huff on it. For a while, I did what Joseph Tolbert was doing, which was to go into the account for the person selling the property and changing the names and phone numbers and email addresses where I found them. Jim didn't like that idea at all. What he wanted was to create a new account and deactivate the old account.
And that's what
So-
we kind of, that's the agreement we have now, so that we
Yeah.
still have
Okay,
a
yeah.
history of who paid what.
Yeah,
So I'm letting him do I just look at QuickBooks. I'm trying not to go in and do anything except maybe update information on contacts or whatever.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't end up stepping all over each other.
Right.
Well, and one of the things that needs to happen is every new owner needs to be sent that link to the online form that shows that they've got an email address and so on, all that stuff that JAR set up
Right.
in Google Forms. So that link needs to be kind of public somehow or another, in a way that maybe it belongs out there at a section on the whole Gold Beach website for new homeowners, new members.
Yeah.
Critical.
That would
Is
be
my
beneficial.
audio working yet?
Yeah, much better now.
Yes. Yes.
Oh.
Hi, Jar.
Welcome.
Olaf, sorry about that. Hey, quick point on the new members link. When I put it out there, I specifically made the choice to, which you can change, but I was worried because it points to an open Google form. I didn't want it to be available to the public, to the masses, to get it filled with garbage. So my initial take was to create a drop page on our website whose link is not published. It's basically the name of the website plus new members. And the hope was that we just, in the initial communication with them, which we've been remiss at doing very well, but that we would pass that on. Effectively, it would be a private page, just by the nature of the fact that the link is not, it's not referred to anywhere on the website.
Right. And that's fine. That's
No.
a good approach.
Yeah, we don't need to do it that way, but I didn't want to create a bunch of garbage in our forms.
Well, somehow that information is getting updated in QBO, and I wouldn't doubt that that's some amount due to Jim, because he seems to go out and look at that information and create. I've alerted him on a couple of them. I've looked for the, here's the new person buying the house. And I think he has access to that. So he's been.
I don't know if I've I don't believe I've given Jim credentials to that,
Okay.
but from one thing I have done is when I've seen emails coming through the main Gold Beach account. So when I sense there's a new party, I try to look and see if they fill it. I encourage them to fill it out. And I have gone through, and I haven't bothered you and Jim with, hey, would you update this? I updated some of those records myself with things that seem to be obvious.
Okay, well then I should be giving you credit. Because I know that's, it's like we've had about 4 or 5 homes sell in the last couple of months, the last few months. And every situation seems to be a little bit different as to how they're handling things. And so I haven't gotten it's, one was a bank owned and one was, the dues hadn't been paid. The other one was the old owner paid the full dues for the year and didn't want reimbursement. And, it's just like every case has been different. So it's, we kind of have to just handle each sale on a individual basis.
And I think that's going to be the norm is, sorry, that every case is going to be different between different buyers, different sellers, and different real estate people. Every case is going to be a little different.
Yeah,
So
the next property that'll probably come up on the thing is Patricia and Joseph Consek. They're moving to, I guess, New Zealand.
Oh, that's a little extreme.
That's where their grandkids are.
Well, there are good reasons for it. I will agree, but
Yeah.
yeah, it is a distance. Okay, I wanted to take a moment here. Uh, I, as you're aware, I've reorganized the agenda. What I would like to see in the future, and Janet, you've actually done quite well on in sending out the statements and information earlier this evening. But I'd like each of the uh, standing uh, entities and the treasurer and each of the committees, standing committees, uh, if possible, to get a short report, maybe not the treasurer, but for example, the architectural committee report on where things stand on any, excuse me, I'm trying to shake this cough, on any current issues on the View initiative, just a very brief statement that if you get it to me a day or so before the meeting, I'll have it in the agenda and we can just skip right over any of those and be a little more
Sure.
efficient with our time.
Well, I'll go back to the architecture committee, which I started out as, and work with Roger Deaver on the viewscape issue. So I'll take that one on.
Okay, and because I don't have the information of who is the board member on each of these, I will put you on there. For communications, Kellyanne had been doing that. Am I right in saying that's open at the moment?
Correct.
That is open.
And yes, Keith, thank you for get us an update for next month on the status of the View initiative. For the facilities, Jar, have you been doing that?
That's me. And
Okay.
well,
So,
we're all waiting currently, and I think we're going to receive shortly the report on the ADA access, which is
right.
a big part of the facility. The remaining report would largely, at this time of the year, fall on how the pool is operating. And I have to say, from what I can tell, which is zero data based in the last 3 weeks or so, because I left town before opening and have not been back since. And
Yeah.
I've tried to manage everything remotely with the pool managers, some of the volunteers and such. And from what my understanding is that we're open, everything is good. We've had at least one visit by Aquatic. The report back I heard there was everything looks fine. So the virtual report is that it's great. I don't know if has anybody been down to go for a swim yet?
My husband's been down there with a friend of his, and I've gone down there regularly to go be checking the mailbox, and I always hear people in the pool. So it is being used, even though it's like February weather. So
Yeah, our weather has not been the most cooperative. That's very true. And
As far as I know, everything's going well, completely consistent with last year. The cleaning service got turned on. The only thing that I can say is that I for sure Teshering is a senior. Dalney is not. Is that correct, Michael?
That's right.
Correct.
She'll be a senior next year, so she's around. She Yeah, she's a senior next year. I know that it does seem that things were going reasonably well. I think the pool did get left completely open one night. There was nobody signed up to close it, which no bad thing happened, I guess. And I think we just got with that aquatic visit, we finally got granular chlorine. I think they've been kind of limping along trying to balance chemicals without the granular, but apparently that's now finally arrived. So, we may still want a more efficient system for picking up supplies at aquatic by reaching out to board members or whoever who might be crossing the pond, in those instances when we're low on something. And then the only other thing I'll say is I think as far as I know, the pool managers are working with no kind of contract or anything. So
Yeah, that's on me, kind of. Actually, it's on the Department of Revenue, so I don't know. I had floated an idea out there that we could maybe, we kind of know what the agreement, we know what the agreement is. I think JAR's got that figured out. We just have to enact it. And made a suggestion that maybe we do advance payments to these guys. I don't know how often they get paid traditionally.
When we were, in the past, on the contract basis, we did it 3 payments.
Monthly.
Yeah, which seems a little, especially if they're employees, it seems like we should be doing it every 2 weeks.
And I had floated the idea out to Jim. We've been kind of not available at the opposite times. Of being able to set them up on the system to be able to get advance payments. So if we want to set up what a timetable is to be paid and they're recording their time, we can do it and then we can credit back and try, once we get the payroll system going, we can record those payments in there and have, the legitimate, all the tax stuff done the correct way. But I don't want to, we can withhold some amount of what we think is the estimate of what tax they would be owing. And so we can at least get some money in their pockets.
One of the things that we did not do when they were acting as contract employment in the past is they did not log their time. And that was reasonable, especially for contract work. Is it necessary for us to have, if they are employees, does time need to be tracked? Or can we effectively treat them as employees with a fixed salary per month?
I think as long as you have a schedule and they, even make some, if the schedule's posted and they just check that said, yeah, I was here then. I think that's sufficient. And if
I'll
they
make sure
say,
that-
I had to come back over later, and if they have to note their extra time that was not listed on that schedule, I think that's going to be a good enough record.
I'll make sure that they document the time, that the dates of responsibility that are probably more informal right now.
Yeah, I'm not hung up on how they do it. It just, if they have something hanging outside the door or whatever, and they can just check it, I'm fine with that. I
Okay.
just, at least until our accounting gurus tell me that they need more than that, but I think we'll be fine. I want to make sure they're compensated for the time they put in.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anyway, I brought up the managers because I don't think you can think too far ahead on who we want. As Teshering and Dolly move on to greater things in life, we need to have names ready to jump in and take their place. It does require that they have a pools operator license, which is not a significant hurdle, but it does require taking a class and taking a test by the state. Usually that's done in the wintertime prior to any given summer season. So it's not something you can turn on overnight. So just a reminder in general to the community at large that it's best to have a short list of good, responsible, mature young people in the neighborhood to tap into.
Okay. So anything else that we need to cover on the pool? There's probably a bad pun in there somewhere. Uh, Social committee, uh, is there a board member who is coordinating that?
I
That
don't
is,
even know who's in charge of it.
that has been completely remiss since Kellyanne stepped down.
Okay. Um,
And, Carl, in my wildest hopes and dreams, I still believe that we don't necessarily need a board member. I think we just haven't found the right person who's willing to take on that job and also the job of, for example, just monitoring emails coming in.
yeah, no question of that.
Now, Jar, did you say Steve Gehring was interested in volunteering too?
Oh, side note, Steve Gehring has actually taken on updating our website. So slowly but surely, in this last year, two things were that the concept of trying to put these jobs in very small boxes seems to be working very slowly, but it's working. So we've got Marcy Rice handling fobs. Steve Gehring just came on and said he'd handle updating the website because he saw there were some things clearly out of date. And I don't know if anybody's noticed this, but he's done a great job of updating and adding content to the site.
Okay. Does anyone know how much the clubhouse is being used for social events?
I was looking at the calendar the other day and it looks like it's being used on a regular basis. And the guy who's the family who's doing that? The
Chuck.
husband and wife.
Chuck Hoffman?
Yes. Yes, so he's contacting me whenever somebody asks to rent the place so that I guarantee that they have their dues paid. So,
Yeah, that's been the routine and it works really well.
yes, I've been more than happy to. They seem like very nice people. I can't wait to meet them. Just like I finally met Marcy Rice. We've just been emailing back and forth and now I've actually met her.
Carl, it looks like somewhere around the order of maybe a dozen times a month, and maybe half of those are regularly scheduled weekday events.
Good. Yeah, it's beneficial that the members are using the clubhouse. Yeah, that's why we have it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh, one other thing that by the way, I'm glancing literally at and this is a reminder, I think I've mentioned this before, on the Google Calendar for the community club. I went through and tried to add monthly placeholders for items the board should be addressing. So in June, I've got fire extinguishers, getting those checked, which has happened. Our service came and checked those this last month. I've got a note to confirm that our insurance is all paid up on the building. And I believe that we're current on that as of
We
a
are
few months
current.
ago. It's always good to, especially, I always get nervous at the 4th of July because the building almost burned down on the 4th of July a few years ago. It's always good to reassess the value that we have on the policy for full replacement, if only because inflation is yet one more reason why we might be behind the 8 ball. So two other points. Let's see. Oh, sorry, one other point. Roger Deaver has come to, this was his idea when he joined the community. He volunteered to arrange for roving fire patrols on the 4th of July. And it has been super helpful. Some years, sometimes in the years past, especially down at the beach, things can get pretty exciting. For good reason. People are having big parties, and the beach seems like a naturally safe place to do that kind of thing. So but we also have the very attractive park next to us for young people over at the Bluff. So whether everybody knows it or not, Roger has arranged and for volunteers on all of this, he's going to be doing it again, I'm sure. So just be aware that that will be happening. And he, I believe we've allowed him to leverage his communication through what email and the Facebook page we have, because obviously it benefits us all.
Yeah, very true. Especially for those of us who won't be on island on the 4th.
Right.
So,
Yeah. I won't be around.
yeah. Okay. I am not aware of any old business that's not under some of these items. There were 2 items of new business that have come up. One is the issuing of liens on past due accounts. And in looking at the aging summary report that Janet sent out, I'm somewhat appalled at the extent of overdue accounts on dues.
And we've set out at least 2 or 3 reminders to people. Even if we don't have an email address, then we've mailed it to them. So I'm not sure what the deal is with some of these. I know these people on there that list that I didn't expect to see on there. So I'm not sure. I went back and read the bylaws that say they have 4 months from the time of the due date paid up, and at that point, then we are allowed to put a lien on their property. And it sounds like we haven't used that for in the last at least couple of years. But it seems like that if we don't use it, it becomes a problem if the house sells or goes into whatever kind of a particular arrangement with the owners not paying up or not, defaulting on whatever they're doing, that
Exactly.
we don't really have our foot in the door to be able to be repaid.
That's right. And the suggestion was made of we can be somewhat generous and only start working on the 91 and over, 91 days and over past due, initially anyway. Do we have information on what steps the club needs to take in order to put a lien on a given property?
From what I've read on, and I need to go check the King County site to see what they require, but our own bylaws, which I'm assuming conform with what the law says, is that once it's 4 months past the due date, we can legally put a lien on the property and all costs related to putting that lien on there, which is like, in bylaws, it's something like, it's like $73. I suspect it's gone up since then.
Yeah, it's gone up.
And so that we can also put that into the lien amount also, so that there, when the house changes hands, we will get that full payment of both all the filings plus the dues themselves.
Right.
Here's my suggestion on the past due accounts that are over 90 days. I suggest we send them an invoice with a statement on it that within 2 weeks of that notification date, a lien will be placed on their property, including the costs of filing the lien.
And I had that in mind, and I'm so glad you have the same idea that I had, because
Yeah, well, and the only reason we haven't done any liens in the last few years is when the pandemic, I became treasurer when the pandemic
Right.
started. And I thought, because we don't know the financial situation of the people losing jobs and stuff like that, that we should, for at least a period of a year or a year and a half, suspend any liens. But now that's kind of not the point anymore.
Exactly. So I'm going back to my question. Do we know the mechanics, what steps we need to take to initiate a lien on property XXX?
I think that Jim Huff can answer that the best.
Okay.
And I grabbed the two lean files that were in, Keith went through and cleaned out the file cabinet. And I grabbed the lean files that were there that show kind of the paperwork that's been used in the past. Of putting, I think, the lean on and then also taking it back off again.
Yeah.
When we've gotten satisfied. But
Okay.
that's about all of I was able to find out. I wouldn't mind, yeah, I can talk to Jim. I wouldn't also mind talking to our lawyer, our whatever law firm we're using, as to what do we technically need to put in there to make this so that it's an enforceable lien?
Okay.
I think
well,
Kennedy Lake is the place to go.
Okay,
They did our taxes, and they are familiar with all this. There are some services that will basically be informed of our aging summary if we set it up that way in QuickBooks, and they automatically apply the lien after a notification of 30 days. We used them in Portland, Oregon for our condo association there, and it worked very well.
Okay.
Basically, the bookkeeper treasurer didn't have to do a thing except to approve the fact that one of the liens is being filed.
Yeah.
oh, okay,
Okay. Well, Janet, could I ask you to coordinate with Jim and get his input on the steps that are needed? And I'm not asking either you or he to initiate those steps, but identify what the steps are.
right,
And as both you and Keith have indicated, yes, I think we are at a point for these past due accounts. A letter, and I think it has to be U.S. mail, snail mail. I would like to have the letter co-signed by both of us.
yeah, I agree.
Uh,
And
just,
we don't have any, do we have any letterhead?
no,
I made one up basically about 2 years ago, and I can see if I can dredge it up again. I can make another one.
Okay.
It's basically a Word file, and the only thing it has on it is a picture of our clubhouse with the pool in the foreground.
well, that works.
Yeah,
That
I just want
works.
something that it's obvious that it's from us and not just some random thing going on.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. Yeah.
One of the points I want to make in that letter is the emphasis that these dues are incumbent on your property, whether you have any intention of going in the pool or not, whether you have
Correct.
any intention of going into the clubhouse or not, whether you have any intention of using the bus shelter or not. It is in the CC&R that you must do this. It is an expense incurred on your property. So I want to make sure that we word the letter to include that information.
I agree.
So and then also, you know, we do then need to include the information of how much administrative expense will be added to the lien if you don't pay it. And we can go from there. So Janet, if you can get Jim's input on the steps, and have you started to draft a letter?
I haven't, I've been sidetracked. But
Okay, I will try to start drafting such a letter, and we can kick it back and forth and
well, that works for me.
wordsmith the living daylights out of it.
And that's why, yeah, I think I still need to pass our final version on to the lawyers and just make sure that we're in conformance with.
Yes. I will say that although our lawyer has given us very good information, she is usually not particularly prompt. Or if I send an inquiry, it often takes a couple months The last time she said she had gotten involved in a trial, and if
Oh,
you know
okay.
anything about lawyers, you get into a trial and life
Yeah.
goes away. Um, that's
Well, I'm also gonna pass, I'm gonna like, I think property liens are the province of the county.
Correct.
believe so.
That's what I kind of got the impression when I was out playing around, because Google never tells you anything wrong. Um,
Except when it tells you something wrong, of course.
So yeah, so I'll try to get this kind of started, and I'll have to contact Jim and get,
Get
uh,
his info. Yeah,
yeah,
good. And on an almost slightly related note, uh, and on this, I would just like uh, your collective thoughts, opinions. Uh, in my most recent discussions with our attorney, she pointed out that the way state law is worded, even though we regard ourselves as a social club, under law we are an HOA.
Yep, I saw
Uh,
that.
okay, I was
and
wondering what the difference was between those two, and maybe there isn't one.
uh, well, the fact of it being HOA is because the membership is tied to property ownership, is where it appears to be. Uh,
Yep.
I I'm not sure that there's much of anything we need to be doing differently uh, in that regard, uh, at least aside from being aware that uh, yes, we are an HOA, which, to be honest, it scares the hell out of me. There are so many horror stories of bad HOAs. And I'm not inferring in the least that we are a bad HOA. We are honestly
Oh, I don't
trying.
want to be one of those HOA people.
Right. Yeah, no, none of it, we want to be as far away from that as possible. Uh, but one of the aspects of it then is that uh, in the CCNR, uh, we have the responsibility of enforcing the covenants.
Right,
So if a homeowner decides they want to keep chickens on their property, we have to put the kibosh on that because it is forbidden under the CCNR. Similarly, there's a limitation on short-term rentals of properties, uh, which I don't think we have uh, ever addressed. Uh,
I
I have
don't think
seen
we've had
people,
any of that.
hmm?
I don't think we've had any short-term rentals.
I take a walk regularly around Lower Gold Beach, and I've seen what I think are short-term rentals. I think there's some Airbnb activity going on.
There was a kerfluffle about short-term rentals a few years ago, and the board at the time did step in and put the kibosh on it. But I think, and to me, this is kind of a big deal because, well, for two reasons. One is we've been pretty clearly telling the membership for the last several years that we are not an HOA, that we're a social club, and we're actually not empowered to enforce the CCNRs. So it almost feels like if that's no longer true, then we owe the membership a message to clarify that we've been informed by our attorney, much to our surprise, that although we're not an HOA, we have this enforcement obligation. So there's the messaging aspect. And the second and probably more troubling aspect is that I don't understand how how we could function as an HOA because our bylaws say nothing about enforcement. That is, there's no mechanisms in the bylaws for how we would enforce anything. I mean, what are we supposed to do? Just sue a member every single time they violate a CCNR? I mean, there's no sanctions built into the bylaws. In fact, the bylaws don't mention how we're supposed to enforce anything.
Yeah, that usually comes in the nature of a amendment to the bylaws, which has financial penalties. That are, that's usually, we did that in Portland. We had to add in a amendment to our bylaws there that allowed us to enforce nuisance regulations and other kinds of things like that, which were stated, but there wasn't a mechanism for actually how to enforce it. So we simply made a schedule of any event that required mitigation by the trustees, the board, constituted an immediate fine of $25 per event.
Yeah. And well, first, Michael, you stated that very, very well. Thank you for
Yeah,
wording it
I
that way.
agree.
And I appreciate well worded statements like that. Um, yeah, I'm weird in that way. Uh, but yes, because the bylaws, as we have amended them, do not have sanctions, it is something we will need to address in another amendment, another revision. Uh, and a simple fine schedule is probably a piece of it. Uh, and that in some ways that would affect how we deal with the view initiative,
Yeah.
because there are provisions in the CCNR to protect views. They are not particularly heavy duty, but there are provisions.
You're being kind, Carl.
Uh, well, yeah,
They're
it
poorly
does.
drafted in the CCNRs, and as such are pretty much unenforceable. But yeah, you're right. If there's something in the bylaws that gave us as Michael put it, an enforcement authority, then we've got some leverage to use across the whole breadth of things. Like
Yes,
Michael Gilman, his design of his house encroached upon the views of Chuck Hoffman and a bunch of other houses, and he modified the roof design
Mhm.
and accommodated that, but we didn't have any tooth to enforce it at all.
Well, I've got a few neighbors I'd like to enforce rules on.
yeah,
Okay,
Have a chance to
start
review.
writing them down.
Oh, no, I see them every time I'm over there. I see exactly the trees that I want to see gone.
Did anybody have a chance to look at the articles of incorporation and see if there's any language in there regarding powers of the board and enforcement?
I have not, and that is on my to-do list. I was avoiding reading the articles of incorporation uh, during my 5 o'clock this morning meeting. So if it sounds like I'm running on fumes, there's a bit of that. Uh, so um, it sounds like, yes, we need to be looking at this. Uh, as Michael pointed out, we will at some point need to be addressing this to the membership, saying that in the past we had regarded ourselves as a social club, but it has been revealed to us through our attorney that we are an HOA and have some responsibilities of enforcing the CCNR,
It seemed
as
to me
bad as
that
they are.
I was getting because we changed the dues this year to be by member, not by property.
Correct.
And that seemed to be because that was the point of it was the difference between the distinction between an HOA and a social club.
Yes.
And I could never figure out if there was anything more substantive than that, is that they pay, less dues, but I didn't know if it changed anything else legally.
Yeah, and the attorney did look at that. She did review that change to the bylaws, And I had mentioned that we have uh, a few members who have more than one property.
We have 18.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and for the ones where one or more properties is not uh, developed, uh, we'd have to look at the situation if that homeowner were to sell one of the parcels but not the other, and then reconnect uh, a new member on that other property. Uh, but when that happens, we'll deal with it.
Okay.
Uh, are there any other items of new business that, well, I guess I should go back to 6.1.2. We did get the invoice for the sales tax on the pool resurfacing. Uh,
Mm.
I am not seeing a need for any formal action by the board. Uh, it is just an accounting error on the part of the vendor that it was not collected at the time. Uh, does anyone see a need for any formal action by the board, or do we need a motion to approve payment of that invoice?
Do we have an invoice that reflects the tax properly?
The one that they sent initially, I gather didn't quite have it right.
I asked the vendor to send in an invoice specifically for this item. I put a copy on the Google Drive for this project, and I'll forward it to you, Janet.
Okay, I mean, I could go out and look for it, but that'd be nice to. If you can forward it to me and Jim, then he has it too, or to put it to the hub doc. That would
I'll do
be
that.
really helpful.
Okay. Uh, as I say, I see that as part of the already approved
Yeah,
payment of the resurfacing.
I agree.
So, are there any other items in new business that we need to
Just
tackle?
one follow-up, Jar, on the, the building and the pool managers. I was wondering if you could ask the pool managers as part of closing to just walk around the upper story and try the doors and just make sure the doors are locked each night, because I've been there probably 6 times where I could just push open one of the doors from the deck into the building. So there's something about the way excuse me, the building is being used, that certain people are failing to lock the doors that lead onto the deck. So it just seems like during the summer, especially when there's a lot of usage, it would be easy enough for the pool managers to just, check that the doors are locked.
That's a good idea. It's not really germane to them, but they're there every day. They're there at the right time to do it anyway. So
Yeah. And just trying to, head off a problem, before we have, a gaggle of people, spending the night there having a party or something that we don't know about.
I would put it that not just the pool managers, but each of us, when we are there on the day, should take that initiative to check the doors.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, well, if I don't, in lieu of any further business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'm happy to provide that motion with one caveat, Carl. I didn't know if we were going to cover any old business, but I just double checked. We still do not have the final text for the updated bylaws from this last spring. And I
I'm pretty
think,
sure I sent that to you.
okay, good. I hope you did. And I will go back and look through my emails to confirm that.
I will try to do that. So, okay, I do have a conditional motion to adjourn. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, I will declare the meeting adjourned at 7:26 p.m. We got in under an hour. Thank you much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Carl, if you have any questions about uploading the recording to the your YouTube account, let me know.
Well, first I have to make sure that it actually got onto my drive, so we'll worry about that later.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you much.
Take
Have a
care.
good evening.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.